Hello, this is Alex Brickoff, and I am the chairman of the Eastside Clinic of the 4th Division of the Pacific Northwest region of the National Model Railroad Association. This is a monthly clinic held typically in the east side of Seattle, Washington, in the community of Redmond. However, due to COVID, we are having these clinics virtually on Zoom. And so tonight's clinic is titled The Everett and Monte Cristo Railway in Trains. And this clinic will be presented by Diedrich Voss. Diedrich is a very talented local modeler, and he also happens to be an NMRA MMR. An MMR is a master model railroader, and it's the ultimate award that is bestowed upon somebody who has demonstrated extremely good modeling techniques. So Dee has prototype modeled the Everett and Monte Cristo Railway around the 1900s era in his basement at his home. However, he was only able to model about 2 miles of the 68-mile route. So as a result, he began modeling the remaining 66 miles on the computer using TrainZ. This clinic will be a walkthrough on what he has accomplished thus far. So please realize that this is 68 real miles plus all of Everett with the Great Northern and Northern Pacific lines overlapping. So without any further ado, let me introduce Diedrich Voss. Thank you.
The theme of this presentation is mostly on trains, which is, I'm not here to teach you how to model in trains, just to show you what you can do. So I thought what I would do is compare the prototype railroad with what I've done in my basement, as well as what I've done with TrainZ. So here we go. Just a little bit, why did I model the Everett Monte Cristo in the first place? It's a branch line, it's local, which means I can visit anytime. Standard gauge, 1890s, 1910. I'm gonna go through it rather quickly here. Nobody else at the time was modeling this, and there was a lot of information, but it hadn't really been assembled very well, but it was out there. And the other thing is prototype modeling, you got photographs of scenes, which means becomes easier than trying to make up something freelance. Many photographs available. The University of Washington had a lot of photographs, local photographers back in the time. And also it had mining and logging operations in it. The history of it, 1889, Purcell discovered gold in the Cascade Mountains. 92, Rockefeller got involved, major underwriter to start trying to get to that gold and extract it. They started constructing the Everett Monte Cristo Railroad. They purchased a short line that went from Everett to Snohomish called the 3S line in order to get from Everett to Snohomish and then go north on the another railroad before they got where they turned east into the Cascades. Unfortunately, there was a 100-year storm, 40 feet of snow, unbelievable stuff. So kind of slowed things down. But 1 year later, they had track all the way to Monte Cristo. And from Everett to Monte Cristo is about 68 miles. 1893, they had a silver panic. East Coast men cut their ties to Everett. 1897, storms take out track through Robe Canyon, probably one of the worst routes trying to get into the gold and the Cascades, but people back east thought they knew more than the people that lived out here, and they went through Robe Canyon, and big mistake. 1899, Rockefeller wanted to consolidate his power, so he forced other investors to give up their rights to the railroad and mines, because his thing was he's going to sell the son of a gun and get out of it. The 3S line was sold to the Northern Pacific from Everett to Snohomish. 1902, Northern Pacific stepped in. took over the line, and they renamed it not the Everett Monte Cristo, but the Hartford to Monte Cristo. And of course, Northern Pacific changed the name to Monte Cristo Branch. 1903, Asarco, Rockefeller talked Asarco into purchasing the mine and the smelter. And he says, if you don't buy it, I'm going to go in competition with you and put you out of business. So they gave him $3 million to keep him out of their business. Rucker Brothers, which is a big logging outfit in the Everett area and certainly up and down the Monte Cristo line, took over a lease from Northern Pacific. And then it was the line from Hartford to Monte Cristo was named Hartford Eastern. About 1936, the track was being pulled out little by little. And finally, county roads were constructed. They didn't really need the railroad anymore, certainly not going through Robe Canyon. And so they pulled the rail, sold it to Japan. Look at that date, 1936. Wow, what happened 4 years later? Golly, I wonder how many warships were built with the steel from the Everett Monte Cristo. It's hard to say. In fact, they didn't get it all because it's photographed maybe taken, oh, I don't know, 8 years ago by somebody. After a washout, it exposed some of the rail that is still up there. Okay, a map constructed. It shows Everett right here. Hopefully everybody can see the cursor. It goes through Snohomish, Hartford Junction, Granite Falls, east to Monte Cristo. And there were several lines that were looked at. They were one time thinking about going up to Arlington and over and coming back down. But the people in the east said, no, we're going to go as short line as possible. And that's when they went through Granite Falls and Robe Canyon, et cetera. Here's another map kind of drawn back there who was coming in. You got the Great Northern that was coming in. You got the Northern Pacific, the Seattle Lakeshore Eastern, something that the Northern Pacific purchased. And then, of course, they had some rights in here. Well, Seattle Montana Railroad, you see over here on Puget Sound, that was actually owned by Great Northern. Nobody knew it. They came in early, bought up a lot of real estate so they could get it less expensively than if Great Northern had come in to buy stuff. So that's what the Seattle Montana Railroad was all about. Here's a county map that you can still get from the county that shows the rail lines that were in the county then. And you'll notice circles, which are locations that I modeled on my physical layout: Everett, Hartford Junction, Granite Falls, Robe Canyon, Canyon Lumber Company, a little bit of Silverton, Barlow Pass, and Monte Cristo. And that all totaled up maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles worth of road, but you can see there's quite a lot in between that just not enough space to model that. A lot of boring territory as well, but nonetheless, couldn't do it. Okay, so here's my layout in the basement. Everett is right here. Hartford Junction, Robe Canyon, Canyon Lumber Company, Silverton, Barlow Pass, and then on into Monte Cristo. Now I was hoping to get more territory to build it larger, but the person in charge said, well, you need an office, we need a guest room, you need a bathroom. Don't know what we need a bathroom for, but whatever. So I wasn't able to get any more space, but actually it turned out that's quite a lot of space. If you just go the true mileage from Everett, you'll see the various passenger stations from Everett to Monte Cristo. So it all ended up being about 68.1 miles starting in Everett. And here's a tariff back then, 1893. And if you look down here where the red circle is, you'll see it from Everett. It cost $3.40 to go from Everett to Monte Cristo. And boy, that's a pretty good price. Well, not really, you know, you put a little inflation in there and all that kind of stuff. And what is that in today's dollar? $145 in today's dollar. So you can see not a lot of folks were taking the train up to Monte Cristo. Pretty expensive to get up there. Okay, now I'm gonna start getting into some photographs of not only the prototype, but the layout and what I've done in TrainZ. These are all the industry that's along Puget Sound and Everett, Port Garner Bay, et cetera, but just along the eastern part. And the Navy base, if you can see my cursor, the Navy base is just about in here, where I'm just kind of running a circle, but these are the various logging industries that are on the line. And here's what I was able to do on my layout. There's one pier in Puget Sound. That's it. Not enough space to do much more. But as far as trains go, I was able to do certainly everything. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit to get into, that's Weyerhaeuser on the left side over there. And as I'm making my way up through, you'll see, let me go right about there. Got a steamship that's coming in, steam sail, comes into the city dock. And if you look off to the right, you'll see the steam engine coming through. So he's making his way over there. And if you look in the distance, you're gonna see all these wonderful buildings that CJ Turner, who is on tonight, and by golly, if you have questions on how to do this, he's got the answers. Anyway, so we're running along. And if you look right there, you'll see the tunnel that goes under Everett. Some more of the piers along the western side. And I'm a drunk eagle, by the way. That's why I'm jumping around a lot. Going through the yard. And pretty soon we're gonna jump around a little bit more. Making our way where you can see all the smokestacks over here with all the industry that was going on with all the logs. Got to put maybe 10,000 more logs out floating in Puget Sound because that's pretty much what the photograph showed. Now we're in the cab. And by the way, you can see all of the mechanism in this steam locomotive. They all work. Problem is, I don't know how to do that. So I'm running it like DCC, where I've got the little dial over here on the lower right. I can set the speed and so on. Again, some other logging industries that are out there, the mills that are out there. But if you know what you're doing, yeah, you can turn the steam on, you can shovel coal into this thing, keep the pressure up, so on. And we're making our way northbound through Everett. Now this is actually the GN line, so we have trackage rights to get through this area. But this was all, a lot of these structures were created using the Sanborn maps. And they're detailed enough to where you can get a footprint of the building. And then if you have at least one photograph, you're pretty golden on, getting the style and the look that you're looking for. Now you'll notice over here, there's a trestle. And that's what they had to put in here in order to have access for the people to get to their industry, to their work. So they would basically either walk or horses or wagons or whatever along that trestle to get to these industries. On this one pier that I'm just looking at, there's about 5 logging companies that shared that one pier. And here pretty soon you're going to see a photograph of that one pier again. And that's probably enough. I'll go on to the next slide. Okay, so here's that pier. And on the left side, you'll see the prototype photograph where I believe it's the GN is taking stuff eastbound. And of course, they painted the size of the boxcar with Everett and so on. I didn't quite have those, but I have some boxcars that I'm pulling out of it. Here's the Puget Sound Reduction Works, the Everett Monte Cristo mill that took the concentrate from all the gold mines in the Cascades and brought it down here and they smelted it and so on. This was probably taken, this photograph's probably taken, oh, I'd put it around 1920 or something, because you can see a lot of stuff's been broken out and it's pretty much disrepair. It never really ran after ASARCO picked it up. They really disassembled it and took a lot of stuff down to Tacoma. Here's on my layout where I was able to model some of the buildings, not all of them certainly. And here it is where it's in TrainZ. And this is the Delta Yard, that there's still a lot of Delta Yard exists in northeast Everett. And I'm just flying like an eagle around to give you a sense of what's there. You see the orange buildings down there, they're just placeholders for future buildings to be put in place. But here's a smelter over on the left side, and then they got cookers over here on these right buildings. And there's another big cooker right inside this building. And then you just see a lot of filters that would capture a lot of the arsenic and gold and whatever was being cooked off in bags, and then they would throw it over the side or whatever. So there was an EPA cleanup in this area, what, 8 or 10 years ago, I guess, and had to clean it up. So that's that. And now we jumped real fast through Hartford and through Granite Falls, and now we're looking at the entry trestle into Robe Canyon, prototype on the left, my layout on the right, and then the TrainZ, and I'll get that started. Now this trestle was actually constructed by somebody else, and I was able to download it, and they have what they call a spline, where you can actually stretch it so it'll fit across the gap and you can fit it in to whatever space you're needed. It's kind of a cool thing to do. Pretty quick too, if you can find the right one you want, just fits right in there. Okay, let me click again, get over. Now we're halfway through Robe Canyon. At Tunnel 2, the prototype shows actually a suspension bridge going across here. There was a mine across the river, and they wanted to bring the ore across, dump it into gondolas. So I had to construct that. And once again, with a 3D modeling program, I'm using SketchUp, as CJ is as well, built a suspension bridge. And that's what this is. Now the upper right, of course, that's what's on my layout. I've got a cable bridge in there, and I finally figured out that this really should have been a suspension bridge, not a cable bridge. But this was located a little bit downriver, I guess, to another industry. Tunnel 5 and 6 on the left side on my layout. Here's a photograph. Actually, I think it's, yeah, and this photograph's from Tunnel 5 to 4. Oh, sorry. Let me go back. Previous. That's from Tunnel 5 to Tunnel 4. And this is Tunnel 5 to Tunnel 4. And you can see the level of detail, I think, here. It shows it up. You can see there's a lot of rock, sharp edges that's shown on the layout as the photograph or the prototype. But in TrainZ, you don't get that level of detail. Now, I could create the level of detail, but that would take up a lot of memory and really slow the program down. So they have a way to simulate that by painting smooth faces to give you that sense of it's rough textured, but it's really a series of smooth faces. Okay, Silverton, a model that's kind of warped a little bit based on the way I built it. Over here is a photograph of it, probably taken. You can see a car in there with a little turntable in the back, so it's probably about 1920 or something like that. And then in TrainZ, again, the passenger station with the passenger train going by. And of course, this is what's on my backdrop when you look at me looking at you. We'll go ahead and run the whole thing. I noticed when I put a video into the presentation that it will only run a maximum about 30 seconds unless you have it as the only thing on the screen. So this run is just under 30 seconds. And it's coming through a cut right at Barlow Pass. And the other week, Mary Kay and I went up there to see if we could find this thing so I could get a real sense of what it was all about. And I did find the spot. The cut is still there. And I found a young couple. The man was climbing up the cliff up there with no supports. He had a lot of pitons with him, but he wasn't tied in. And I said, "You want me to belay you?" And, "Oh, no, that's okay," you know, but he gets up another 20 feet and he falls, he's in trouble. Anyway, that's going there. And then not a half a mile, there was a way station where they would drop off stuff. There's a ranger station behind here. Again, I simulated that. I modeled that on my layout, which is in the upper right corner. And then you can see the same scene in TrainZ. And if you look at the mountains, you know, see the cut, I pretty well got it, you know. Now you wonder how I got that in TrainZ. Well, I actually downloaded the topo from the federal government and all the mountains and everything were there. So I didn't have to do much to get that profile of the mountains in there. Finally getting into Monte Cristo, Barlow Pass to Monte is about 3 to 4 miles with a switchback included. And prototype TrainZ on the right, prototype upper right, my layout lower right, and then TrainZ lower left. And, you know, as you get stuff in there, I said, well, how'd they get the ore down? Well, they had tramways. And here are the 2 tramways that they had, the Halliday patent tram from 45 Mine to Silverton, which is upper here. They also had the Halliday patent trams in Monte Cristo as well. And you'll notice that's just one cable. And the buckets were actually tied into the cable, which moved. And as a result, they couldn't carry, the buckets were pretty small because they couldn't carry heavy weights or anything. And I would assume it was a problem when the bucket finally came into this receiver station. I would assume they had to stop the cable moving in order for them to dump the buckets, unless they set up a way to mechanically tilt the bucket over and they could dump the ore, and they could keep it moving. Now you notice on the Bleichert patent tram, this is very similar to the modern ski lifts that we have today, where you have an unmovable cable that the bucket is riding on. You can see the 2 wheels over here, and then another cable that the bucket clamps onto. And as it moves into the receiving station or at the other end, they loosen this clamp and it rides slowly, and it gives them time to dump it or load it. And then it clamps on again, similar to what you get when you go snow skiing. And then it moves on again. So those also were created. All of this stuff that you see here was all created in what we use in SketchUp, 3D modeling program. So here's kind of where we are after a few years. Me taking care of most of the topography and the track laying and that kind of stuff. But as far as concerned, I've done about 266 buildings, a suspension bridge. You can go through the list and see the various things that we created. And you can look over on the right and see CJ's kind of blown me away here. You know, he's been working on, how long have you been working on this, CJ? About a year, and he's got 1,416 plus buildings, the swing bridge. And
more about 3 years.
Huh?
3 years.
3 years you've been doing it? Okay, well, it's still 1,400 buildings. My gosh, guy's a monster here. But that's kind of where we are. And by the way, if somebody wants to get involved, we'd be more than happy, because we probably have another 3,000 buildings to construct, to make, to get into this thing. So that's kind of where we are. Now, how do you get started? You got to get TrainZ. And it's a $40 program. And if you want to do prototype modeling, whatever line you want, rather than trying to create the topography that you're going to be going through, a reasonably quick way to do it is to download the relief map from the federal government using a program that I purchased. A fellow out of England wrote it, and he sells it for about $30 plus or minus based on the exchange rate. And it takes a little bit of while to understand what you're doing, but I think it took me about a month to figure out what to do. Another guy told me, gosh, that's pretty quick. It took me 6 months to figure it out. But nonetheless, get that program. And then it comes in, it's just, you hardly know where you are until you paint the surface with a georeference map, like a USGS map or a Sanborn map that you can georeference, a train route map, which again, you can download from the federal government. It's already georeferenced. And you paint the surface of this thing. And then once you do that, you can export it into TrainZ, and you'll have a reasonably accurate location of where you are, and it'll show where the track should go if you put a track route down, and you can just start laying track. Certainly there is some adjustment to make because the relief match you get from the federal government's on a 40-foot grid line. So, you know, it shows a smooth surface, 40 feet. And if you got a cut there, you've got to create the cut. So there is some work to do, but at least you got the mountains in the background, you got the elevations and all of that. So then once you start working on your trains, then you can start downloading structures that a lot of other people have created, and they've uploaded it, and a lot of stuff's up there for free, locomotives, cars, people, trees, etc. And there's a download station from the N3V Games Limited people that created trains, or you can create your own structures. Again, I say we're using SketchUp Make, which is the free version. The company that purchased the SketchUp no longer offers the free program, but I have a copy, which people can get from me, so that you get a free version of this, and to me, it does everything you need to do. Then there's an add-on to that. It's called Ruby TMIX. Again, it's free. You basically put it into SketchUp, and it exports into the format that TrainZ files recognizes. And then you get into TrainZ and you import the stuff. So here are all the references that have been used. Certainly not going to go through it, but I think Sanborn maps are very critical. I'm working with Granite Falls Museum, which is an absolutely tremendous resource. If you've never been on to the Granite Falls Museum site, they pretty much are the preeminent historical group for the county of Snohomish. And boy, they've got some great stuff up there. And I find them a great resource. And ultimately, I think what I'll do is give them a copy of this thing that I'm working on, so they can show it to their visitors or present it at high schools or whoever else is interested in it. It's a great way to go. So what I want to do is to get into TrainZ itself. So these buildings, this one on the left was done by CJ, and he also downloaded the streetcar off the download site and reskinned it, as they call it, or repainted it, and put the local line on that. So now I'm going to run it. So here we go. And every time I get my cursor over the turnout, you'll see the direction that it's to go. Now I'm doing in a chase mode, so I can kind of fly around. You'll see now notice I haven't put up here we go. Oop. There we go. Boink. There we go. Got it up. So here I'm good. So now we're on Broadway. If anybody's familiar with Everett, on Broadway, and there's several bridges that go over the tracks that still exist that go through the tunnel in Everett. And I'm going to go on a roaming, so I can kind of make my way here. And if you look in the distance, you'll see the tunnel and the trestles or the bridges that go over. So now we're getting up to Hewitt. Sorry about that. Let me get a little bit further out, and he'll take a right turn. And again, all these buildings are what CJ's been building. It's just incredible. I'm going to go back in, and I'm going to jump into the cab of the streetcar so you get a sense of what it was like. And they actually built a brick road on Hewitt. This was the main street in Everett. And while I'm in the cab, I can just kind of do a look around. I can see if I got any passengers. If anybody's on there, I'll be surprised. I didn't put anybody on there. One of these days, I'll figure out how to get people to load and unload, and they'll show up. I know that the streetcar is prepared to take them once I figure out how to get to a station and have them load. Now, one good thing is if I push the space bar, I can speed this up. So we're not sitting here for 20 minutes waiting for this thing to make its way, but it's on the way westbound going on to Puget Sound right now. And all the overheads and all of that, it was built in SketchUp. And actually the road, the track, the overheads and everything is all one unit. So wherever I move the road, everything follows. So it was kind of a good way to do it. Some people recommended doing it separately, but I never could make it work well. And you notice every once in a while a car shows up or a horse and wagon shows up. Got it set up where they kind of randomly show up. So I have a little bit of action going on. Now I'm coming up, and this was the GN station. Right now it's just I think it's a one-story warehouse. They really tore down this beautiful building. Too bad they didn't keep the darn thing. I'm gonna go into roaming so I can get up here and look at it a little bit more. Just a wonderful building. CJ, you got photographs of this thing, right? He painted the sides of this building. How did you do that?
Photographs, even a postcard or two.
A postcard or two. Okay, so he was able to take a postcard and grab that. And so this is really just painted on there. So it helps to cut down the memory requirements that are needed. Now I'll go ahead and stop it. No reason to, but I can run this guy all the way around Everett and even out to the smelter and down to Lowell, where there was an industry down there. So the streetcar was actually put in to help folks get to work and so on. Let's see, we've got Rucker Mansion up here too, right, CJ? See if we get up to
I'll
Rucker
go
Mansion.
by the hotel first.
Yeah, we're gonna go by the hotel. I'll do a chase mode again, and we'll stay with this guy. Now this hill is pretty steep, and they had constant problems with it. And I think they finally just gave up trying to, there was just not enough traction for the car to get up this thing, but I'm gonna make it work. So here's the Monte Cristo Hotel that he put together. Wonderful looking structure. And I think, okay, I'm gonna stop him. And now let's see, where is, where do I find Rucker Mansion? Is this, no, that's not it. That's my brewery down here, by the way. I'm gonna show you my brewery because that's one.
South of the hotel.
Say again?
South of the hotel.
Okay, got it. Anyway, that's the Washington Brewing Company. And that's on my layout as well. So if I go, it's up in this area? Is that right? The Rucker Mansion?
2 Allop Street.
Well, I'm not sure I have it in here. I don't see it right now, but no reason to waste. Anyway, that if you want to buy that Rucker Mansion, it's only going for $3.5 million. So it might be a bargain. I don't know. I think he built it for $20,000 or something. But again, that was back then. Now, if I keep going, I'm gonna speed him up big time. And I think we're on Rucker. I think this is Rucker Avenue now, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so that's it. Any questions?
Nice.
Are you still building real models?
No, unfortunately. I mean, I've gotten enough models on my layout, but it's pretty well populated. So I wasn't, I don't have space to put much more. I could finish off, I guess, the smelter because there's some side buildings that still need to be finished.
Is there any prospect of taking the TrainZ building models and converting them into 3D printable ones?
Yes, CJ has actually created some wagons that he has 3D printed, and they're actually on my layout. Now, depending on how big your printer is, what you can do. It may be that some of these buildings built in SketchUp would have to be broken down into smaller pieces, maybe side walls, roof, front, that kind of stuff, in order for it to fit into whatever printer you have. And that's the issue, because some of these are true size buildings, so they would probably be way too big, and it may be less expensive as well to go ahead and build them in styrene. But as far as knowing what the dimensions are, you can use SketchUp to get the dimensions of it and scale it out and cut your pieces based on it.
Couldn't you upload those, at least in parts, to a company like Shapeways and print them out?
Yeah, you can, but I think they have a size limitation.
Size limit? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is because I haven't really looked at it, but I think you'd be wasting a lot of money trying to build massive walls.
Sure.
Maybe smaller detail would be good. And you could even probably print the streetcar. That might be a good size to print because there's a lot of detail that you could work with.
So I was wondering your comment about the USGS maps, because this is something that I've been trying to unthread out here on Tiger Mountain. Do you find any evidence of the original grades in those maps? Or you had mentioned that you didn't see much, but something like the cut behind you at Barlow Pass, you would see that on the map, or is the map not of sufficient resolution
Correct.
to discern that?
Well, when you have a 40-foot elevation grid, that kind of detail goes away and you really don't see it. If you can find a map that would show where the line goes and you can georeference it, then you can do that. Now, I don't know if you can see my screen behind, but let me pull this down a little bit. You'll notice that this is you can see this, I'm assuming, right?
Right, yeah, yeah, big
Yeah.
floor and.
So if
very-
you can georeference this, you could actually use this map and paint it down on the topo. So you get a pretty good indication of where things are.
where
And
things-
if I'd have known that before getting started, I wouldn't have used a USGS map. Well, yeah, I wouldn't have used a USGS map. This would have been a better thing. But because the USGS is, I think the earliest was like 1950 or something on that time frame. Whereas what you see behind here is of that time. And this was really, it would have been a very much better reference to me getting the track in the right place. Now, of course, if you're modeling 1950s stuff, there are actually georeferenced maps available for where the track goes. So you can not only imprint it with, say, a current USGS map, but you could then superimpose on top of that the track line. So you got both of them. You're looking at both of them. But in my case, that wasn't true because 1900, what did they have really?
So Dee, did you have to work from a library of available cars and locomotives, or did you create all of them on your own?
I started downloading, like the 10-wheeler that you maybe have seen, and even the American steam locomotive. I downloaded those and then reskinned them to put the Everett Monte Cristo and numbers and so on the side. So they do let you get in and change the JPEG file, the way they paint them. You can change those and put them in place. The cars and stuff, there wasn't anything close enough, but I did have drawings that you'll find in the book, Everett Monte Cristo Railroad, they were available, what size they were. And in SketchUp, I was able to create those cars. The trucks, the couplers were already available. And those are some things that you want to use because, for instance, the trucks, the wheels, they're already programmed to work on the track and for the wheels to turn. And I've not figured out how to make wheels turn yet. But, and they stay on the track, they turn and so on. So, there was a lot of that kind of stuff is readily available. As far as the cars go, I had to create those in SketchUp.
Well, does anyone else have any questions or comments?
Alan Murray here. Hey, Dee, I think the USGS maps are 20-foot contours.
They may be. They probably do have some, but some reason or other, I got the 40-footers. I think maybe when I was going through the Cascades, I don't think 20-footers were available. I think it was 40-footers. But that was good enough.
You had 7.5-minute maps or 15-minute maps.
It's been a few years since I looked at it that closely, but they were adequate. I mean, it really took a lot of the pain away from having to create these things. And that was probably the main stumbling block I had to even get started. Once I found that you could download these topo maps, and everything just opened up. Otherwise, you'd be spending years trying to recreate all these mountains in their correct profile. And it's not a fun thing to do, but a little bit of tweaking here and there, it's okay.
What's your ultimate goal here? Is it to make something you can operate with prototypical distances, or just to create a digital historical artifact, or some combination of that?
I think both. It is possible to have an operating session with several people involved. Recently, the company came up with that capability. So you can be in different places and operate the layout together, which I think is a cool idea. Haven't done that, but certainly is possible to do it.
I mean, physically, I could operate part of it from my home and you could operate the rest. We could do it remotely.
That's correct. Now, I don't know if you have to have a copy of this layout or we can go on to something like Zoom. I don't know what the capability is. I've not really looked into it, but there are people that are doing this and they're just having a whale of a good time. So you can.
Yeah, I think each person needs a copy of the program and your design. But yeah, most sims do offer that now, multiplayer, things like that, which is actually pretty nice.
Yes.
This is Lisa Murray. I don't know if anybody saw in the chat, but he shared how to load passengers. He actually uses this quite a bit. I don't know whether Aiden will speak up, but I guess you use the edit properties to load passengers.
It's
Yeah.
it's the question mark button.
Yeah, you put a trigger in, and then you basically set the trigger to where it would load and unload passengers. Yeah, and I just haven't gotten around to that yet. We're just, I barely got this trolley track in the right place. So, you know, we're still working on the buildings and all that kind of stuff. So it's getting there. It just takes a while.
Well, if I'm maybe volunteering Aiden, but I think he could help. You guys could share some information because he's on that.
Great.
Anytime he's not on school right now, he's on that. So.
Super.
Yeah, something like that I can see would definitely be very addictive.
It is very
Yeah,
addictive.
for sure.
Yes.
This is Russ. I wonder, how do you handle litigation when you have accidents?
The whole program blows up and you start over.
The best part is they have a virtual attorney that you can delete.
That's true. Yes. Now, one thing you'll notice every once in a while you'll see a horse and a wagon pop up, and I haven't put the rules in to make them stop as the trolley car is making his way, who supposedly has a right of way, and so they'll basically go through each other and just keep right on going. Now, that's not true if you have two locomotives come against each other. They'll blow up and derail, and you get the big X's and all that kind of stuff. But it's kind of funny, like you see this guy. I got this guy coming up. He just popped up. I think that's kind of cool. Now, because it's automatic and I want to cut down on the memory, you notice the wheels are not turning, the horse's legs are not moving, no horses here, but at least it gives me some motion going on in the background. And so pretty much in all the streets, you'll see wagons kind of moving around. Maybe not too many right now, but at least I got that one. I thought that was kind of a cool thing going on.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Dee?
Hey, Dee, this is Rich.
Yes, Rich.
I'll say that you've done an amazing job with that. I don't know if folks realize how difficult and how time consuming that creating that stuff and even just retexturing things is. It's a very, very commendable effort you put forth there.
Well, I'm hoping to recruit you to help. You're the expert.
It's been a while since I've done any train stuff other than just playing with it.
Yeah, well, you know how to do automation though. That's one thing that I've got to get a handle on. So, like you got a log mill that has a log going up the green line and so on. That'd be a useful thing to do.
Okay, anybody else has any comments or questions?
Tom Taylor.
Yes.
I have two questions historically. I didn't expect to see the Seattle Lakeshore Eastern going up through Everett. Was that the predecessor of the Great Northern? I know the Seattle Lakeshore Eastern headed to North Bend in the early days, but I did not know they were in Everett.
That was Northern Pacific.
Northern Pacific. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that became the Northern Pacific track?
Yeah, Northern Pacific bought that. And it goes through Snohomish.
Yeah, straight through up north.
Yeah, but the Seattle, Montana Railroad was the predecessor to the Great Northern. Like I said, they came in early as the Seattle, Montana, and to buy up real estate.
That one made sense. Thank you on that. Thank you for an excellent presentation, by the way.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, well, if there are no more questions, Dee, we'd like to thank you very much for your outstanding presentation. We really enjoyed it. It's pretty fantastic what you're doing. It really is. The next thing that's on the agenda, we come to a segment of our clinic that we call the show and brag. If anybody has any models or photographs or anything they'd like to show off that they've been working on here the last few months, we'd be happy to have you show them to us and tell us a bit about them.
Somebody was talking about 3D printing, and this is one that Paul created with 3D printer. Right, Paul?
Yeah. Can you see it?
Yeah, yeah, that's a really nice model.
If you can pick it up and get it real close to the camera so people can see the detail, if you feel.
Oh, well, I can do this.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
The
print it-
body is not glued onto the flat. Now there's underbody detail that I've started to put on here. Can you see it?
Yep.
Sure, sure. So Paul, all this was 3D printed?
The car was the needle beam and queen post are Grant's. The trucks are Bachman, and that's 25 thousandths wire and Grant turnbuckles.
Mm-hmm.
The whole body here was 3D printed.
Nice, nice. Was it printed all in one shot, or did you print it in parts?
It's 3 pieces. You got the basic frame, you got the deck, and then what I call the body. The other thing I've been working on for the group is I cut up a S-scale caboose and made a ON30 gondola out of it.
Nice, nice.
The whole body is S-scale caboose. And then I filled in to add weight, took a Bachman frame and filled in with resin and shot to get it to weight right. All those little round spots on there is lead, number 12 lead shot. And then I use my S-scale stirrup steps for a K27. Put that on there. And by the way, the decals are N scale, except for the capacity.
So did you work from a drawing to make that?
Oh no, I just cut up a S-scale caboose, cut the top off of it at the joint line horizontally. I never liked the car, but I got them for like $5 a piece. So it was a lot easier. Oh, I know what to do with this. And I took it on my bandsaw and went zip, put a piece of styrene around the top. And now I got a ON30 gondola. Cheap, $5.
Sounds good.
Less trucks and couplers.
Sounds good. Okay, Paul, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Alan Murray here.
Hi, Alan.
I've been working with John Benson. He's got a layout, an ON30 layout, Rio Como Railroad, and he sent out some photos, which I could share here, of some recent work we've done there. There we go. So this is just an email. So you can see there, we've got some fascia we're working on. We're using 1/8" plywood that we get at Midway Plywood on Highway 99 between Everett and Linwood. And it's kind of interesting. We started using pin nails, but they go straight through. So, and we're gluing these on as well. Started using staples, and we can set them deep enough and putty them up, and it works pretty good. John's been working on trestles, and essentially there's two different operating railroads. There's the logging and mining railroad, which is totally independent from the mainline railroad. And so this is some trestle work he's been working on. He's also lighting all of his buildings, and you notice he opens the doors and fully loads the buildings up with lots of detail. And then here you can see the switchback. So here you got the main line on the bottom going through. There'll be a deep canyon here. The canyon, it'll go clear down to this plywood on the bottom. And then there's a trestle here. I'm not sure what he's thinking. He keeps changing his mind, but essentially this is a 30 feet by 13 feet area that we're using in the shop.
Nice, nice. Looking really good. Thank you very much, Alan. Okay, so that's about it. We'll see everybody later. Bye-bye.